Okay, MegaWhale team, welcome back to the channel and thank you for tuning in. I hope you're all having an absolutely fantastic day. In today's video, we are diving deep into the macro and the short-term charts, crunching some numbers, discussing potential top targets for Bitcoin based off the expected 4-year cycle top date, October 6, 2025. We are going to be providing you with 6 potential targets, with each having lower and or higher probabilities of being reached, utilizing the average monthly change from Bitcoin dominance, extrapolating that to our October 6 target, and then using that information in conjunction with potential macro targets for total cryptocurrency market cap to derive the value of Bitcoin at the particular time, October 6, based on Bitcoin dominance values. A very, very in-depth video and a very complicated analysis, so let's get into it. Before we get started with today's video, I do want to say we are also going to be discussing all of our usual stuff, from the short term to the macro to the weekly, etc, etc. This is just an additional component for today's video. Now, before we get into the content, make sure to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and of course, guys, comment down below if you have anything to say. You can also join us on Telegram. We focus on nothing but the facts, the data, the technical, and the structural information. No hype, no BS, no emotion, just pure raw TA. The Telegram link is the first link in the description down below. You'll get access to our charts, our analysis, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in the loop for cryptocurrency with Bitcoin and the relevant economic news. And if you're interested in joining our VIP channel, you can do that by clicking the pinned comment of the free channel, contact our admin, or check out our trading track record, or even a 10-minute video showing you inside the VIP channel. We post trading setups with exact entries, exact targets, exact stop losses, trade justification, exclusive analysis, and so much more, including access to group chats, from the general chat to the trading chart education chat to the news, the help, the daily video, and community setup chat. Check it out. We'd love to see you in there. Let's get into the content. So starting off on the market data, 24-hour volume and 24-hour liquidations. Let's jump into it. Volume is down 1.72%, so really a negligible change over here at 208 billion. Liquidations down 36.6% at 159 million, with pretty much nearly half coming from longs and half coming from shorts. Looking at the short-term price action from yesterday's video, we saw the breakout of that horizontal resistance, resulting in a rally up to a price of around $110,400. We were expecting the price to push very slightly higher, looking for around $110,700. We're about $300 shy of that target, and we have now pushed back into the support. As you have known, the rally from yesterday's move was heavily as a consequence of Donald Trump suggesting that they were going to delay the tariffs on the European Union to the July 9th date instead of course, the beginning of June, resulting in a rally in the price action and eventual break of this horizontal neckline. We'll come back and discuss this in our short-term analysis. Moving over to the DXY, we can see the DXY is continuing toward the downside as expected. We still are expecting a macro correction towards these low levels around 94 to 93 over the next 6 to 12 months. Again, how quickly that develops will be highly dependent on what happens with interest rates moving forward, particularly with the expectations of interest rates and how that uncertainty is unmasked. All right, let's jump into the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is looking fairly decent. Now, as we mentioned in yesterday's video, we are trading based on an invalidation method. So provided we sustain above this level here, which is sitting around 5,700, we are going to be bullish. But we are optimistic, but we are bullish, but we are cautious. That's the word I should be saying. The reason we are cautious is because we have created deviation over here from our change of character, marking this as a potential local top into our short-term correction. So at the moment, provided we remain underneath this high at around just under 6,000, the potential for corrections into this support level still remain in play. And therefore, we are only going to be flipping aggressively bullish again on the short term when we break above 6,000. If we break through 6,000, we are actually expecting a new all-time high for the S&P 500. We are expecting this resistance level to break. So at the moment, the short-term bias is going to be neutral. The high time frame bias is bullish above 5,700, and of course the next trigger for the next leg up is going to be a break of 6,000. And with all that being said, guys, again, the worst case scenario, if we do drop below 5,700, that is when we expect the higher time frame bearish trend to really kick in and take us back to 5,400 to 5,300. That is it for the broader markets, guys. I want to get through that nice and quickly. Let's jump into Bitcoin. As we've said, we have a heap to discuss from our complex calculations over here, projecting potential top targets for Bitcoin, the total cryptocurrency and total altcoin market cap. In fact, we are also going to be relating our expected directional moves, so how we expect these charts to react to this data at the end of this analysis to, I guess, give my personal opinion on which potential price target I believe is going to be most likely to be reached. And then, of course, we'll also go over all of the other short-term and high time frame analysis. So before we get into it, make sure to go ahead and sign up to BitGet, BitUnix, or BingX. These are the exchange links down below. You'll go ahead and support me making these videos for you on a daily basis, and you'll be trading on exchanges I trust. You'll also get a lifetime trading fee discount of 15 to 45% of all your trading fees based on your trading volume. So check it out. We'll play an ad and we'll get right back into the content. If you are looking for a new exchange or just want to support the channel, sign up to BitUnix with the link down below. You'll get a lifetime trading fee discount of 15%, which can build up to 45% based on your trading volume, as well as access to a bonus reward center, and of course, all of the exclusive campaigns we run on this exchange. You'll also get access to BitUnix being a non-KYC exchange, meaning you can sign up from anywhere in the globe without regulations. And most importantly, I only promote exchanges I trust and I use. As you can see, I trade on BitUnix very regularly, being the highest VIP level with over $500 million in trading volume for the last 30 days. And lastly, if you were interested in signing up to our other two exchanges, BingX or BitGet, you can also do that via the links down below. You as well will get the 15% trading fee discount and everything else that comes with it. Go ahead and sign up. Thank you for supporting. Let's jump back in. Okay guys, let's go ahead and get stuck back into it. So starting on our complex mathematical equation. Now, from an initial look, you're probably looking at this and thinking, there is so much going on here, I have no clue what it is. To put simply, this is actually a very simple mathematical equation. All we are doing we are taking the expected Bitcoin dominance value on October 6th and plugging it into this calculation, which is simply looking at what would the market capitalization of Bitcoin be at October 6th based on the two variables, which is the market capitalization of the total cryptocurrency market cap and the Bitcoin dominance value, which then spits out a value market price for Bitcoin based on those two variables. So firstly, we need to explain why we are choosing October 6th. For those of you who have been paying attention to crypto cycles, you would know that the 4-year cycle, one of the most famous cycles of Bitcoin, is projecting a top date October 6, 2025. Now, whether or not that will be the top for Bitcoin is entirely irrelevant to our analysis today. It is going to be a data point we are using as a control variable to assess the value of Bitcoin at particular market cap and Bitcoin dominance ratings on that particular date. So October 6th, 2025, we have got historical data to suggest that is going to be a likely potential target. So we're utilizing that date as our control variable. If we look at this is going to be our Bitcoin dominance chart. First and foremost, we have to identify how many days away from now until October 6th are there. There are 133 days, which we've gone ahead and simplified into 4 months. So then we need to define, well, what is the average monthly change for Bitcoin dominance? We look at the average change of a total change over a 12-month period. That was 37.96% divided by 12 months, giving us an average monthly change of 3.16%. So we expect Bitcoin dominance to change or have an average change in value of 3.16% upward or downward or wherever over a 1 month period. So then applying that to the upside and downside from where we are over the next 4 months, we could see a 12.64% change upward or a 12.64% change downwards. Now this provides the minimum, okay, and the maximum change range. We could see Bitcoin dominance hover somewhere in between. That is very, very likely. We could see it hover sideways. We could see it push more toward the upside or more toward the downside. All this is doing is based on our historical 12-month change. This is giving a minimum, so again, worst case scenario and best case scenario change for Bitcoin dominance. We are going to be using these values to calculate the minimum and the maximum targets for Bitcoin based on the total market capitalization, and we are also going to be using the neutral value, which is the current current Bitcoin dominance value, to calculate again the possible changes. So that takes us to this chart over here. Simply what we have done, and I'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit over here, we have taken our October 6 value, which is over here, October 6, drawn our vertical line in. We are then drawn in our horizontal resistances, our macro resistance lines, okay, taken from prior tops, okay. Again, we're using these prior potential top dates to account for diminishing returns on this value over here. This brings us to around 3.92 trillion, okay, and this brings us to around, I think it was around 5.31 trillion. So we're using these values as, again, max and min targets for total cryptocurrency market cap on October 6, 2025. First and foremost, let's talk about the minimum. This is going to be the value of 3.92 trillion. Assuming a Bitcoin dominance value of 72.53%, okay, 72.53% is going to be the maximum Bitcoin dominance value. So this is going to be assuming Bitcoin dominance comes up to here, okay? At 72.53% of a market cap of 3.92 trillion, results in a Bitcoin market price on October 6 of 143,000 US dollars. That is assuming a circulating supply of 19.87 million, which is the current circulating supply. If we go ahead and bring it to the neutral Bitcoin dominance value range, so no change, that will give us a market capitalization price, or should I, a market price of Bitcoin of 126,892 US dollars. And if we were to use the minimum, that will give us a value of 110,931, which we have already reached. That is going to assume, again, the total market capitalization for the total cryptocurrency market does not surpass 3.92 trillion. We'll come back and discuss later the probabilities of all of these scenarios occurring and how likely each of these targets are. But for now, we need to define and explain what these targets are. So at the moment, we have 143, 126, and 110. Already, these are going to be the more probable scenarios and targets than the ones we'll reel out and discuss in a second. Let's go ahead and discuss the next targets. So assuming we see a parabolic move up for the cryptocurrency market moving into the end of the 4-year cycle, we could potentially see the total cryptocurrency market cap value reach as high as 5.31 trillion, which is going to be its upper level of resistance. So again, at a Bitcoin dominance of 72.53%, at a market cap of 5.13 trillion, the market price of Bitcoin would reach 193,000 US dollars. Okay, if we're taking a look at no change on Bitcoin dominance, so 64.32%, the market price will be 171,000. And if we're looking at a minimum Bitcoin dominance value, so Bitcoin dominance actually drops, we could see a market price of 150,000. Now, let's talk about which of these 6 targets are the most likely, why some of these are unrealistic, and how This chart here can be utilized to infer or context to behind what would be most probable. So let's talk about our maximum targets. First and foremost, if we're looking at the targets that assume a 72.53% Bitcoin dominance value, we would need to see a monthly average change of 3.16% upward for the next 4 months. Now already, that is going to be an incredibly unlikely thing to see. For Bitcoin dominance to rally to 72.53%, especially if we expect the altcoin market to continue aggressively upwards through that $940 billion level. Provided we break this $940 billion level, we would actually see Bitcoin dominance drop. So this is going to be an inevitability if the total cryptocurrency market cap continues upwards. We will very likely see the altcoin market break through, and thus money will rotate out of Bitcoin and into altcoins, and we'll see Bitcoin dominance drop. So through the natural growth of the market and how these charts are developing, it is unlikely that through the growth of the total cryptocurrency market cap, we will see Bitcoin dominance continue so aggressively upwards that it would reach 72%. So already that these two targets are going to be incredibly unlikely for Bitcoin, provided we see again the 72.53%. If we are looking at the optimistic targets, so such as our very optimistic target, which is 150,000, and then our next one, because we've already reached this one, 126,000, these are going to be more realistic targets. Again, we do expect Bitcoin dominance to at least see some degree of a pullback over the next 3 to 4 months if altcoins do rise, so Bitcoin dominance would at least either drop down to 56% or hold neutral at 64%. We could very well see Bitcoin push to 126,000 and 150,000 US dollars, provided the total cryptocurrency market cap either reaches 3.92 trillion, which is going to be a likely potential target if the market continues upwards, or 5.31 trillion if we see a parabolic phase. So again, this is going to be very optimistic. 150,000 is still very optimistic for Bitcoin, because again, it will require a parabolic rally in the total cryptocurrency market over the next 4 months, which it does not seem like we're actually preparing to do so at the moment, and it will require a drop in Bitcoin dominance when doing so. So when we're looking at the most likely targets for Bitcoin, it does come back to this $126,000 target. We've of course reached 110,000, so if we don't reach 126, that would mean the top is already in for Bitcoin. So assume the top is not already in for Bitcoin, I think a realistic target for Bitcoin based on this analysis would be the price target of $126,892. That will assume that the total cryptocurrency market cap continues to grow over the next 4 months, and it does also assume that Bitcoin dominance will hover around about the same value of what we are seeing now, which would give a market price of 126,000. Now, if we take a look at Bitcoin dominance and say Bitcoin dominance does drop a little bit, we may skew slightly closer to 143,000. So we would have an optimistic price target for Bitcoin between 126 and 143,000. But again, the likely would be 126. So with a summary everything really quickly, the most likely target for Bitcoin will be between 110 and 126,000, and then we have an optimistic target for Bitcoin between 126 to 143,000, and anything above 143,000 would require the market to see a parabolic hype phase, which at the moment is very difficult to be able to predict and is very unlikely. So those are the targets. If you hear people saying Bitcoin's going to 200,000 by the end of the year or $1 million, understand those people are not basing their analysis in fact and data. They are simply using emotions and what they want to see rather than what the charts are suggestive of. Let's go ahead and jump into the rest of analysis and keep it nice and short and sharp. As we mentioned, the total cryptocurrency market cap is looking pretty decent. Provided we remain above our macro uptrend, we are going to be expecting continuations. The only real concern I have here is that these trend angles of around, we're looking at over 45% become quite steep and hard to sustain over a long period of time. We are going to either see a breakdown and a correction into demand before we see continuations, or we are going to have to consolidate sideways for a period of time before we absorb the selling and continue toward the upside. We can already start to see momentum is falling off, the bearish divergence printing over here, and the price action pushing back into prior levels of support. If we do drop below the uptrend, and we lose 3.19 trillion, that would result in a higher time frame correction for total cryptocurrency market cap, and of course, result in a correction for Bitcoin. For us to enter that parabolic phase toward the upside where we see the total cryptocurrency market cap push into that $4 trillion region, potentially making these targets very much realistic, we need to see the total cryptocurrency market cap break through this uppermost level of resistance. And for us to do that, we need to sustain above our most recent higher low, which is 3.19 trillion. And as we mentioned, for us to do that, we need to not break this uptrend. So a lot is resting on how the price action develops over here. Moving over to the altcoin market, as we discussed very briefly a few moments ago, the next point of which altcoins will perform aggressively will be when the altcoin market breaks 940. Only when we break 940 are we going to see a strong rally up for altcoins. Until then, we are going to see sideways consolidation between the baseline of the Ichimoku cloud at 870 billion and the $940 billion mark. We do not expect altcoins to do exceptionally well. We expect some to underperform, some to overperform, but on average, mostly just chop slightly downwards, provided Bitcoin dominance continues upwards, which it is doing. If we break 940 billion, Bitcoin dominance will drop and the altcoin market will gain aggressively in comparison. So the next leg up for the altcoin market will begin. Let's move over to the short term. The short-term price action, we saw a breakout. It did not reach our target. In fact, it came very close, right? We're about, what was it? About $200, about $250 shy of that target. Still a very nice breakout for Bitcoin, just not as high as we were hoping for. And we have broken and we have corrected now back into this 50 EMA. Again, the loss of the 50 EMA could result in a correction back to our uptrend over here. For us to see continuations into new highs, we need to see Bitcoin break through this change of character. Breaking that change of character, so resistance level we failed to break through, will result in a continuation through our most local resistance and of course result in a new all-time high for Bitcoin. If we are zooming out to the 12-hour chart, we still do have some of those warning signs present as we have on the total cryptocurrency market cap. Again, we have this extended uptrend, a very aggressive angle, flipping that trend. We can see this extended trend here. If that trend line breaks at any point, we will see a reversion in this trend. We've been traveling upwards for over 2 months. We could see a correction back to that 200 moving average worst case scenario before we then continue up for the rest of the year. So paying very close attention to how we react at this diagonal uptrend and that short-term horizontal resistance. We are apexing on the 31st of this month. So I do expect over the next week, we are either going to be pushing to new highs or breaking this uptrend. That is the next 7 days. We will be either pushing into brand new highs of Bitcoin, or we are going to be breaking a multi-week uptrend, which have now been about 2 months. Pay attention. Looking at the weekly chart again, provided we sustain above 104,000, the weekly risk isn't really too high. We do have one thing, which is a potential bearish divergence that could develop. Now, only if we see the weekly candle turn red and engulf this prior candle, meaning an engulfing candle means the weekly candle closes below 106,500, will we run the risk of this bearish divergence actually developing more aggressively, which could send the price action down? Of course, as we mentioned in the short term, 106,500 is literally sitting at this uptrend. So if we break this uptrend, we are closing the weekly below, we are seeing an extended correction down. As we mentioned already, we can see how those dominoes are lining up and how that, cascade effect can play out over here. Now, coming back to these targets, of course, all of these targets do rely on the fact that the total cryptocurrency market cap continues upwards to these levels. So if we see at any point evidence that the market is going to see these extended corrections, right, well, then it is very likely that our top target has already been reached. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one on Thursday. I look forward to seeing you all then. Bye.